All right, greetings, everybody. My name is Dave Cusack, and I'm the director of the New Artist Model Online Music Business School, and I'm going to be your host today for this music licensing webinar. If you're looking to get your music licensed, then you have come to the right place today. I am also the founder of Berklee Online, the world's largest music school, and I've had the privilege of working with literally tens of thousands of independent musicians, songwriters, producers, composers from all over the world over the years to help people pursue their dreams in music. And today I'm joined by some really amazing people, licensing coach and mentor Joyce Kettering, who you're going to meet in just a minute or so, and our good friend, Chris SD from Sync Songwriter. Chris is an award-winning producer and sync licensing expert. A lot of you know Chris from Sync Songwriter. He's helped hundreds of artists get their music in films and on TV, and he spends his time training and consulting with musicians and songwriters to help them effectively pitch their music to music supervisors. Everybody, if you would, say hello to Chris.
Hey, am I there, Dave?
You are there.
Excellent. Hey, everybody. I want to say, thanks for coming out to this awesome webinar. There's a bunch of you I know from Sync Songwriter, right? I invited you out to this webinar, and I just wanted to reiterate the thing I was telling you in my emails is that I like to bring, if I don't know something perfectly, I like to bring the experts, right? So I've known Dave for a little while now, and you just heard how, his pedigree is impeccable. Berklee Online, massively successful. So I shoot for the top when I want to bring you guys some great stuff. And Dave, of course, works with Joyce. And Joyce is an expert in libraries, music libraries. And so she doesn't just talk, she walks the talk. And that's who I like to bring you. So Dave and Joyce, thanks so much for putting this on. This is great. I'm stoked to, especially for my community to really get an amazing window into how all this works so they can have success in music libraries.
Cool. All right. Back to the slides, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk to you about music licensing and how you can get organized and get started licensing your music. Now, right now is the best time to set the groundwork for yourself and to get started licensing your music. Joyce's method for music licensing that you're going to see today is very practical. She's going to take you inside an online training program especially designed to teach you how to license your music yourself. And as you'll see, you can start submitting your music for placements in the first few weeks. We're going to give you some leads that you can submit to as well, just because you're here today. Now, a lot of what we're sharing today is normally reserved for our members only. And we're also going to be taking your questions. We're going to try and answer as many as we can in the hour or so time that we have. So this is your chance to get access to Joyce, and Chris will join us as well. So don't be shy to ask questions. Our special guest, as I said, is Joyce Kettering. Joyce has written and produced hundreds of songs, and she's gotten over 60 some odd of them licensed through music libraries at this point. But, she wasn't always living her life in music. Just a few short years ago, she was working in the corporate world in finance and contract compliance with music as her passion and her side gig. And I bet a lot of you can relate to that, right? So what changed for her? I mean, she used everything that she learned from her finance background, and she researched and experimented with trying to license her music. And you know what? She discovered a lot of things that absolutely did not work for her. And hopefully she'll tell you a few stories. But she also found solutions and licensing strategies that eventually allowed her to quit that big corporate job and work full-time licensing her music and helping other musicians. And now she's sharing everything that she's learned with you today. So from Paris, France, please say hello to Joyce Kettering.
Hi, Dave. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm going to tell you loads about music licensing and libraries. Also excited to take your questions at the end, so keep them coming.
Short and sweet. Okay. So, and last but not least, everyone please say hello to Chelsea Ira, who works with us at New Artist Model and will be helping us in the webinar and fielding your questions. Say hi to Chelsea.
Hi guys, like Dave said, I'm going to be hanging out in the comments with you. So if you have any questions for Joyce, I'm going to be gathering them up. Just type them in when they come to mind, and we're going to have a lot of fun in the Q&A later.
Awesome. Okay. Today's webinar is going to be very enlightening for those of you just starting out with music licensing, but also for you sync veterans who want to learn more about music libraries. And to make sure that it's worth your time to stick around for the whole thing, we have a special bonus for everyone that you'll get at the end of this webinar. So stick around. We're going to be taking your questions, and you'll get this 7-day music licensing checklist, which includes 8 licensing leads that you can immediately start submitting your music to, okay? Right there, that's worth the price of admission. Plus, you're going to get a members-only view inside our Get Your Music Licensed online training program. So let's get started. I'm going to ask Joyce to jump in and explain just what exactly is music licensing.
All right, let's do this. So, number one question, what is music licensing? So licensing is basically like you're renting your music to other people. So you keep all the copyrights, but you allow other people to use your property. It's mainly a pursuit for songwriters and composers. So you can license your songs or instrumentals to other recording artists, or you can make your songs and instrumentals available for licensing on TV shows, films, and games. That's what we call sync licensing, and that's the type of licensing we're going to focus on today. So question number 2, why would you want to license your music in the first place? So when I started doing it, I had a full-time job as a financial auditor, as Dave mentioned. So my big attraction to licensing was that I could do it from home or when I was traveling for work, with a full-time job. I could do it at my own pace. But there's also another big reason to get into music licensing. It's that compared to other options available to us indie musicians, licensing can be extremely lucrative and can generate recurring revenue through royalties, for example. So let me show you exactly how lucrative. This is taken directly from Songtraders' pricing tool, and it's their recommended pricing. So you can see it goes from $200 to $10,000. And I'm showing you this just so you know for sure that the numbers I'm about to tell you about are super conservative and attainable. So let's actually check those numbers. So here I'm comparing like 1 million streams on Spotify, which nets you approximately $3,000, compared to how many sync licenses you need to close to earn the same amount of money. So on the left side, you see different types of licensing projects at a conservative price. For example, a placement on a YouTube video for $20 or an advertisement for $3,000. So you see much lower than the $10,000 recommended by Songtrader. And on the right side, for each type of project, you see how many sales you need to make that same $3,000. Instead of the 1 million streams on Spotify, you just need to close 150 sync licenses with a YouTuber, or only 1 advertisement, or 3 corporate videos. So this here, again, these are conservative numbers. I really want to show you that this is it's very realistic, not just fancy numbers. Okay, so now that hopefully I got you excited about music licensing, now what do you actually need to get started? The number one thing you need is the music. So 3-4 tracks is actually all you need to start. There's like this big myth around music licensing that you need hundreds or thousands of tracks. That's not true. We have Chuck in the course that we'll tell you a little bit more about him later, but he has 37 songs that he just places through non-exclusive music libraries, and he earns a living licensing his music. And I'll tell you a bit more about non-exclusive libraries as well in a minute. So 3-4 tracks is all you need to get started. You need to register those songs with a PRO before you submit your music to make sure you get those royalties. You also need to be able to export high quality files like WAV files. So when a music library asks you for high quality files, you're able to deliver those. And you also need to be able to provide metadata, so keywords, to identify your tracks and make those appealing to music libraries. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in a few minutes. The second thing you need is you need the right mindset. So with music licensing, I'm sure those who work with Chris already know this. You need that mindset, that courage to send your music out. You also need the determination to keep going, even if you get turned down, because you will get turned down. And you need the patience to do the boring stuff like emailing and researching and email outreach to customers. That's really how you stand out from the competition. And the cool thing with music libraries is that, contrary to setting up a gig, once you've done the hard work, you can actually generate recurring income from those songs and music libraries. But still, you need to put in that hard work up front. So the third thing you need, and that's where this webinar comes in, is you need a plan and a system. So you can take matters into your own hands and make sure people hear your music. So one of my favorite quotes, and this is really what I'm aiming for here, is, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, or teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So the purpose of this webinar and the Get Your Music License program is that I want to give you all the tools to get the work done yourself, no matter what genre of music you write in and what your personal situation is. So even if you have kids and a full-time job, this can work for you. And I'm sharing with you a framework that you can really tailor to your specific situation. Because, from experience, all sorts of music get licensed as long as the production quality is up to standards. So let's dive into the Surefire method to license your music. I'm going to show you two main strategies. And I'll start with strategy number 1, which is music production libraries. So music libraries are the main strategy that I teach in the course. It's a way for you to license your music without knowing anybody. And really the beauty of it is you can pretty much set it and forget it. And the hard part is taking the time to submit your music. But once you've done that and uploaded the tracks in a music library, then it's basically all passive income. Okay, let me show you some examples of music libraries. You have Pond5, that's super popular with indie filmmakers. You've got Audio Jungle, super popular with podcasters. DL Music have a bunch of music and reality TV shows in the US. They're an exclusive library, but they're still pretty cool. And you've got Marmoset, who are really into indie bands. So how do music libraries actually work? Well, music libraries are basically websites that have a searchable database for their customers. So someone who's looking for a track for their video, they'll go on a music library like Audio Jungle or Songtradr, and they'll type in a few keywords, and then a bunch of results will show up. They'll listen to a few tracks, pick the ones they need, choose a license, depending on what they need it for, and they'll pay a synchronization fee to the library right there and then. And you get a percentage of the sync fee. So a pretty common deal is you keep 50% of the sync fee and the library keeps 50%. You keep 100% of the writer's share, and the library acts as your publisher and gets 100% of your publisher's share for that particular placement. This is pretty typical. It can vary from one library to another, but that's pretty standard. So who are music libraries good for? They're really great for anyone who's new to licensing. They're a great way to get into licensing, even if you have no connections, and because they're driven by metadata and search. So music libraries really don't care if you know anyone. What they care about is that when someone comes, when your song comes up in their search results, that the customers purchase a license once in a while, that they're happy with the result. So what do you need to get started? As I mentioned, you need 3-4 songs or instrumentals that are fully mixed and mastered. The fully mixed and mastered is super important. And music licensing, you don't, at least not with music libraries, you don't want demos, that it needs to be broadcast quality. It needs to be ready to go. People who go on music libraries, they want the tracks now. They want to use them now. You also need to be able to provide alternative versions. So for example, if you write songs with vocals, you need an instrumental mix. That's super important. And also, if you can deliver 30-second cues, 10-second cues, 60-second cues, that is a huge bonus. It's really almost an obligation if you want to stand out in music libraries. Because if you think about it, if a customer hesitates between you and a competitor, and the competitor provides short cues and alternative versions, but you don't, the competitor is going to win. And you also need a system and a process to keep track of everything, because you'll need to be submitting to a bunch of music libraries. You need to keep track of where your songs are, and who you send them to, who accepted their tracks, who refused them. All right, what is metadata? I've talked about metadata a little bit. So this is how people find your tracks. And in the music library jargon, the metadata is the keywords that and other information like your PRO number, your CAE number from your performance rights organization. That's all the information that you attach to your track. Now, here I'm going to focus on the keywords. And keywords really need to be relevant and specific so that it drives the right search results, so that your tracks appear at the top of relevant search results. So how do you tag keywords? I mentioned relevant. That doesn't mean spammy. You want to be relevant, not spammy. You want to be specific, not too general. And you want to describe what you have. Make it super easy for someone to picture your music. So for example, if you say a track sounds like a McDonald's or Coca-Cola commercial, everybody can picture what that ad will look like and what the music will sound like in that ad. That's what you're going for. Remember, your customers are not necessarily musicians, so you need to speak their language. Now, let me give you an example from Audio Jungle. So this is a top-selling track in Audio Jungle, and you can see here, $29 is what it costs to licensing, and there have been 10,000 sales of that particular track. So the Morning Light Music actually made $150,000 in sales from just that one track, not counting performance royalties, not counting, how the track was used afterwards. And you can see right from their title that the title includes 3 relevant keywords: upbeat, inspiring, corporate. That says it all. And then you have descriptive keywords on the right here, and you see the maximum number of keywords you can add in Audio Jungle is 30, and Morning Light Music made sure they added 30. So, they took the time to come up with relevant and specific keywords. One of my favorites in there is tutorial, because that's, a YouTuber who's looking for music for their tutorial, it's perfect. Okay. And by the way, this is a non-exclusive track. So Morning Light Music can actually license that same track through other music libraries. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that right now. So music library strategy, I've got really 4 big strategies. Number 1, sign non-exclusive deals, especially if you're just getting started. So what a non-exclusive deal is that when you sign a non-exclusive deal with a music library, what you're doing is you're authorizing that music library to license your song, but it's on a non-exclusive basis. So if you want to license your song directly to a customer, or you want another library to license that song for you, you can do that. As long as you're only signing non-exclusive deal, you can have that song in several marketplaces, in several music libraries. That's in contrast to an exclusive deal with a music library, where if you sign over a few songs to an exclusive deal, only that library can place that song for you. And depending on the wording of the contract, sometimes you're not even allowed to get a direct placement to a customer. So, I would avoid those deals as much as possible, especially when you're getting started, because by signing non-exclusive deals, it's basically risk-free for you. Even if the deal doesn't work out, it's fine, because you can always turn to other music libraries. Second strategy, avoid race-to-the-bottom libraries. So what I mean by race-to-the-bottom libraries is all those music libraries that license your tracks for like $1. So remember, the great thing about music licensing is that it's more lucrative than streaming. So we don't want to be pricing ourselves down and getting to that point where we only get $1 for our tracks. That just doesn't make sense. We want to earn a living from our music. So we need to value our music. Otherwise, nobody else will. Number 3, reach out and update your listings regularly. So if you go on music libraries, if you start doing your research into music libraries, you'll notice that very often they put forward the newest tracks prominently on their homepage. So the more new tracks you can send them, even with libraries you're already working with, the better. And also, I recommend that you send to every time you learn of a new music library, do your research, figure out if you want to work with them, and if you do, submit your music. Because, again, the more songs you have, the more chances you have of earning money. And if your songs are in multiple marketplaces, you're exposed to more customers as well. And number 4, don't be afraid to experiment. So it's like when you're learning an instrument, really. When you start learning an instrument, you practice and you make mistakes and you sing out of tune or whatever, and you keep practicing and you get better at it. It's the same with music licensing. You cannot be paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes, because chances are you will make mistakes, and it's okay, as long as you hedge your bets, and protect yourself, mitigate those risks by signing non-exclusive deals, for example, then you'll be fine. Okay, let's have a look actually at Chuck. I told you about Chuck earlier. He's part of the course. He has a catalog of 37 rockabilly tunes that he licenses to multiple non-exclusive libraries. And we'll hear more about his strategy later, how he got to making money from music licensing with music libraries. But the reason I wanted to tell you about him right now is I wanted to mention that his music is rockabilly. So don't think that you only need to be able to make uplifting, inspiring corporate tunes to make money from music licensing. Rockabilly works, jazz works, classical music works. Just, go for it. Okay, let's dive into strategy number 2 now. Strategy number 2 is about going direct to your potential customers. So a lot of you already know about how to land Sing placements yourself because you're in Chris's program, but I'm just going to give you my take on it as well, and especially the networking component. So, you can leverage music libraries to close more Sing deals as well. And the idea with going direct to the to potential customers is that you get to keep more money, basically, and you get to choose the projects you work on as well. Okay, the first step may seem obvious, but it's actually incredibly important, is you need to understand what you're selling. So number 1, you need to be able to explain what kind of music you make. You need to be specific. It doesn't help to tell people that you write in a lot of different genres. That doesn't exude confidence. So even if you do work in a lot of different genres, depending on who you're talking to, know your audience and know what they want to hear. So if you're talking to a YouTuber who does gaming tutorials, stuff like that, know what kind of music they use in their tutorials and talk about that music you're able to provide to them. Also, you need to be able to identify where this type of music can be heard and what kind of productions use similar music. That will inform the type of customers you should be reaching out to. And it also helps to know why this type of music is used in productions. Again, that's about putting yourself in your customer's shoes. So understanding, for example, if you're making like Hans Zimmer type of music, that the reason, that Batman type of music is for the thrill of it. So if you can talk, the way you would talk to your customer is about thrill and suspense and tension and energy and Batman. So that's the idea, really. Once you know what you're selling, you can start thinking of who you want to sell it to. And that's where you create your dream list. I like to call it my dream 100. What I do is whenever I have a new batch of songs, I'll start listing. I'll come up with a list of 100 potential customers who might be interested in my music. And 100 may seem like a lot, but I think it's really important that you force yourself to come up with 100, because that's how you get creative ideas. And again, music business is similar to music production and songwriting. The more creative you can be in the way you do business, the more successful you will be. So, don't be afraid to dream big. We've got members in the course who got placements on MTV, TLC, Entertainment Network, got music for advertisements for brands like Toyota. So don't be afraid to dream big. But you also want to look at production companies in your area and kind of try to start thinking about who maybe works in advertising or marketing, who may know someone who does. So don't limit yourself. Make sure you list 100, because again, you need that struggle to identify original opportunities, and that will make you stand out from your competition. So once you have that dream 100, you can target key decision makers. So for TV shows or large film productions, there will usually be a music supervisors. Gaming companies tend to work with a music department, and of course, if you want to work, if there's a YouTube channel you like, you can reach out to the YouTuber directly. And in the course, I show you how to do the research and find these people. So, but first, let me actually introduce you to one of my students who was really successful going direct to decision makers. So Sharon was one of the first on board, and she really tapped into this strategy that we tend to forget, which is tapping into our current network. We always seem to think that we don't know anyone worth knowing, but that's just not true. Once you start telling everyone, and by the way, if you're playing live, there's nothing wrong with once in a while mentioning on stage that you're up for sync licensing. So once you start telling everyone what you're trying to do, that you're trying to license your music, suddenly doors open. So Sharon actually realized that she knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew an award-winning indie filmmaker. And she got a meeting with him. He got interested in a couple of tracks, and the rest is history. So really do not hesitate to tap into your current network. Dream big, but don't be afraid to go local either. All right. Now, let me show you my program. It's called Get Your Music License, and I'm very, very proud of it. Because it took a lot of effort. I've put in all my mistakes and all my successes in it, so you don't have to make the same mistakes I made, and you can save a bunch of time and energy to license your music. All right, so it's composed of 6 modules, and each module is has 4 steps. So if we look at module 1, the first steps to get your music license, you see that right away from week 3 or step 3, I'm encouraging you to take action. And the idea with module 1 is really to build up licensing momentum quickly. That's the strong suit of this online course. I encourage you to take action and get things done right from the start with clear next steps at the end of each video. So you learn by practicing just like you would an instrument. So in this course, in this module, instead of talking too much about the theory of licensing, I give you leads right away, leads that you can explore so you can start figuring out the market for yourself. Right away, you get into music libraries, you figure out, what are they looking for, how can you help them with their needs, and you start submitting music. So let's have a look at what that looks like exactly. That third video I was telling you about, the start submitting music to music libraries. So in that lesson, right away, you get a spreadsheet that includes, I call it the master licensing file, and it's a spreadsheet that's included in the course, and it's complete with 100 leads in a catalog tracker template. So what that means is you'll have a bunch of leads that you can submit to that are all free to submit to. So there's no, you need to pay $5 to submit your music. They're all free to submit to. You just need to do a little bit of research to see if they're the right fit for you. And you've got a catalog tracker template. So you can keep track of who you send your music to, who accepted your music, who you need to follow up with, who hasn't replied to you the last 2 times you followed up, so you can kind of forget about them if you want to. All right, module 2 then is about building momentum. It's about, having a clear sense of direction of, where are you going? And again, it's a clear step-by-step process to follow to get your tracks in music libraries. And here what we do is we focus on your objectives. Like, you need to take the time to figure out what you want, so you have something to aim for. And once you know that, you can set up a music submission routine and you can start tracking your submission. And in this module, we really talk about preparing for the best case scenario. So that's where we talk about preparing your audio files, making sure you have all the right keywords, you have all the different file formats you need, so high quality MP3, lossless files, different bit rates, and all that information. That happens in this module. Now, module 3 is probably the favorite of songwriters and music producers, because module 3 is all about building a catalog. So most of the course content is about building your music licensing business with music libraries, but we don't want to forget about creativity and your art, really. So this module is really, really cool. It will really give you a lot of confidence in your songwriting. And if we look into it, I'm not going to teach you how to write music specifically for licensing, because I actually don't believe that approach produces the best results. I think you should be focusing on what you're really good at and what you enjoy doing. And then, yes, there are tips and tricks to get placements, like, a really snappy intro and make sure the end is clear cut and doesn't fade out, stuff like that, where, yeah, I can help you with that. But this module is really much more about how you can build momentum and confidence in your music writing process, like Jim here. And the reason that music writing process is so important is because the more songs you can write, the more songs you have to sell, to license. So Jim really embraced the songwriting process presented in the Get Your Music License program, and we'll hear more about him later. But one of the tracks he posted in the private Facebook group is actually a really cool comedy score. And what I really love about that is that he was completely out of his comfort zone, but it sounds great. And that's really, really cool, because comedy is in demand and super hard to score. So, by coming up with that track, he's actually put himself ahead of quite a lot of his competition. And so, but, we'll hear more about Jim later. So let's get deeper into strategy 2 that we talked about earlier, which is about bypassing libraries and licensing direct to customers. So this module is really about networking, and networking, not in a scary way. I'm not going to tell you need to go to those big music conferences and be the cool person there who's not shy and not afraid to talk to most people. This module is about becoming completely independent and self-sufficient. It's about figuring out who your ideal customer is and how to reach them in a way that you're comfortable with. So step 1 is really identifying who you want a relationship with. And then once you've done that, you can research, reach out, and stay in touch with them. So my favorite lesson from this module is actually research and reach out. And the reason it's my favorite lesson is because it's a framework that you can apply even if you're shy or not comfortable going to, big events. And, right here, I may seem comfortable, but that's because, I know what I'm talking about. I'm comfortable. I really enjoy teaching. But when it comes to like talking about myself or promoting my work and my music, then I'm way less comfortable. So this lesson is a framework that's helped me, and I'm sure it can help you as well. Like it helped Pamela. And this is taken directly from the private Facebook group in the course. And I love the fact that she reached out to a friend who's a TV film editor, and I love the fact that she hadn't actually done it before, but this program actually gave her the confidence to do it, and that's awesome because she got her first placement that way. Again, it comes back to that, dream big, but also don't underestimate the people you already know. And we had someone else bartering with an indie filmmaker who needed to use her house as a set. And in exchange, the filmmaker agreed to use one of her songs in his movie. So, that's what this course is all about. It's encouraging you to be creative in the way you do business and to get a bunch of inspiration from the community of indie musicians that's already participating. All right, module 5. Advanced tools and techniques. So by this point in the program, you'll have a much clearer idea of where your music would be a good fit and who you want to work with. So now we really want to make sure that you know how to reach out to them and act professionally. It's all about, being a professional, that they have confidence to work with you. So the core lesson of this module is about putting together a unique pitch and a demo reel. So if you're first getting started and you don't have a demo reel, don't worry about it. I'll show you exactly how you can have a unique pitch. So that really, really helps, because if you have a powerful elevator pitch that you can deliver in 30 seconds, that will really help you when you're talking about your music, and it'll help you stand out and impress your dream 100. Now, module 6 is about taking stock. So this is where the roadmap gets even more powerful. So no matter what stage you're at in your music licensing career, no matter how many music libraries you're already working with, or submitted to, you can go back to module 1 and go through the process a second time and still get immense value out of the roadmap. And a quick reminder, this program is all about taking action. So you can see that the penultimate lesson in the program is taking action. So right till the end, I'll have you super clear and focused on where you want to go. And, by the end of the program, you'll be 100% independent and you'll be able to lock your own music licensing deals, but you'll be taking action right till the end. All right, so I actually need to take a drink of water now before the Q&A, so I'm going to hand it over to Dave.
Awesome. Thank you, Joyce. That was great. A lot of good tips to get folks started. I hope you guys can see the power of getting organized and approaching licensing in a systematic way, that you can get your songs placed and you can start earning income, as many, many people in our program have done. Now, as we promised at the start of the webinar, we're going to have a free ebook and licensing guide for you that you can use to get started. And we're going to give that away to all of you in just a few minutes. So stand by for that. And we're going to be taking questions from the chat. So please type your questions in. We've already got a bunch. We're going to try and answer as many as we can. But first, I want to give you the chance to join Joyce's truly revolutionary licensing course that she just showed you, called Get Your Music Licensed. And we have a very, very special deal and the opportunity to get direct feedback from Joyce if you want more guidance on your licensing journey. And that's all because you're here today on the webinar. So what is Get Your Music Licensed? I mean, I hope you can see that this is a resource that you can use to break into music licensing if you're just starting out. Joyce uses this stuff every single day to license her own music, and that's what has allowed her to quit her job and do music full time. And that's a real testament to how well this approach works. Get Your Music Licensed will help you focus on maximizing the opportunities for the music that you already enjoy making. Think about that. You don't need to fit into a popular music box to successfully license your music. Indeed, licensing can be lucrative even in the smallest niche and genre, and Joyce will show you how to do that. We'll show you where to pitch your music, how to pitch it to ensure that your songs get noticed. We'll show you how to make more money in one deal than in a whole year on Spotify. And if you're not sure where to start or how to get music libraries working for you, then this program will give you the roadmap to get your music placed, because that's what it's all about, right? We'll take you from where you are right now with your music and show you how to get placements. If you've never licensed your music before, Joyce will show you step by step what you need to do. And if you already have experience licensing your music, you're going to get better organized. You're going to become a networking ninja, and you're going to be able to focus your efforts and really ramp up your licensing career. There are 24 video lessons that'll help you get your tracks ready so that you get seen, so that you stand out. And also, as Joyce mentioned, how to identify your ideal customers and the libraries that you should be working with to keep yourself moving forward. As Joyce mentioned, you get 100 well-vetted and current licensing leads to submit your music to. That alone is worth the price of the course all by itself. Plus, you'll get checklists, a catalog tracker, a submission tracker, tips and tricks and inspiration to stay motivated and on track. Once you get in Joyce's program, you're going to find everything that you need to move forward. No more hunting around for leads or solutions. No more feeling lost or alone, because Joyce is going to be there with you to give you meaningful feedback on your production and your songwriting, and to give you support to get you through the ups and downs of licensing, because it's a long game to play, and that's the way she plays it. But most of all, we want to show you that it is possible to get your music licensed, to make good money, to get your music on popular TV shows and films as an indie musician. Chuck Hughes, that Joyce mentioned a while ago, he's one of our members who's done just that. Let me introduce you to Chuck right now.
I saw Joyce advertising on the internet that she was going to do a licensing course, and she had a beta program she was getting into. So I joined that when it was just a small group, about 15 of us. I just went down the line, went to every library's website, followed the instructions. So I submitted like crazy to hundreds of libraries, not even thinking about the results, because I knew if something got used, it would be 9 months till it got recorded from ASCAP anyway. ASCAP is my pro. And what happened was maybe 5%. Maybe I submitted to 200 libraries then, and maybe 10 of them started using my stuff. And so I get statements from ASCAP that they had used my stuff. And I had a real lucky break one day when Broadjam called me on the phone and said, "Hey, Chuck, we've got a music supervisor who needs a lot of rockabilly, but they can't afford to pay for Elvis Presley rates. So you've got a lot of stuff on your Broadjam page. Let me give you their phone number and call them up." I said, "Great." So I called them up, and they took 20 of my songs. They came with a cash advance, and most of them went to MTV, to an MTV show. So that worked out quite well for me. And I might mention that I've always gone non-exclusive, and I don't have enough songs to be able to say, okay, that's all right. I don't care if it never gets used. I don't have that much material. I'm not a production writer. I am a artist. Okay, they call it artist songs. I take the same songs that I have out on Spotify. Those songs in their instrumental versions are what gets licensed through libraries.
Yeah, Chuck's awesome. I love his approach. I think he's spot on. He's all about like putting your music out there, not being afraid of making mistakes, just, having your music out there, submitting to as many music libraries as possible, and not worrying too much about what might or might not happen. And I think that's a big part of what allows him to also play live gigs at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, he just did a festival in Europe all while doing this.
He's incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's because he's got a system, right? And he's been submitting his music over and over again, not that many tracks, but he's been able to get some really lucrative placements that have made him many, many thousands of dollars. And, you guys can do this too. And to help you even more and give you more tools that'll help you get your music licensed, we have 3 bonuses that we put together real quick. I'm going to tell you about. If you sign up for the program right now, you get these 3 bonuses. Bonus 1 are a set of tool boxes. These are really incredible. The first one is a productivity toolbox. Now, how many people need more hours in a day, right? That's what this is all about. Joyce designed these very short lessons to make you more productive and help you get organized and manage your time better. The second is a creativity toolbox that includes a lot of tips and tricks to build your catalog faster than ever before and get rid of writer's block and that kind of thing. There's tons of ideas that you can use to make songwriting a daily habit, even if you're not, particularly inspired that day, right? And all those things can build up into a huge catalog that you can use to bring in licensing income. That's bonus 1. Bonus 2 is access to our exclusive online community of indie artists dedicated to licensing and publishing and making it in the music business. You'll meet a lot of people with tremendous experience licensing and performing and just being in the business, and you'll be able to get answers to your questions, feedback on your own songs, your songwriting. You'll be tapping into the collective knowledge of over 1,000 members and growing. That's bonus 2. Bonus 3, Chelsea and I put together a guidebook that shows the basics of copyright and licenses and how all of that works technically, right? How to approach other artists to get your songs cut, and our very popular split sheet template that helps you keep track of your songs when you write with other people. Chris, you want to jump in?
Absolutely, Dave. So first off, I just want to say I hadn't seen this webinar before, and when I've known you for a while, and you were like, we talked about licensing and stuff, and I don't really cover libraries. That for me, honestly, just an admission. I just heard bad things about libraries, being a needle in the haystack and being lost. And you were like, dude, you have to check out what Joyce is doing. It's amazing. And you told me about it and all that, but this is the first time I've seen it, just with everyone else. And I was taking notes and stuff like that. And honestly, Joyce, blown away, because first off, the thing is that not only did I not know a lot of these different things, like I wrote some notes down here, like I love the tagging with keywords thing. Brilliant. Like that's exactly how you would stand out in a music library. Just getting creative with that. The whole idea of avoiding race to the bottom libraries, that was pretty much exactly what my objection was to the whole thing. It was just hearing this constant thing like, I'm in libraries, but I haven't made a cent from them and blah, blah, blah. And yet I knew there were people making money in libraries, but I just never really delved into it that much. So obvious, total common sense, don't go with the libraries that are just like the Walmart of libraries. Value your music. I love that. And also like doing your research. That's huge, right? Researching all the different stuff. So I thought that was amazing. So, and then I got to say overall, just like everything that you were talking about, because again, I didn't hear this webinar, is right up my philosophical alley. It was all backed up by facts, statistics. It's obvious why you had the success that you did. And, even though I know Dave and I knew this would be great, I still had this feeling of like, I want to bring my community, the people who are on here from Sing Songwriter, I want to bring them something valuable and something awesome. Because like every single time I want to do that. And boom, done. So if you guys don't like that, there's something wrong with you. That was amazing. That was incredible. So that's really what I got to say about that. It's really great. And also, it's cool that you also have a module in there, which is kind of closer to what we do, right? So at Sync Songwriter, we connect people with the right people in music licensing, like the gatekeepers, the decision makers. That's a big part of where I had success and got people tens of thousands of dollars per license and all of that. We've had great success there and never really looked at the library. So this is fantastic. And you're kind of covering some of that off too. The library thing is amazing. And you've had obvious success there. So super impressed. I don't have much else to say right now on that. But.
All right, dude. Thank
Music
you.
to my ears. Thank you.
All right, everybody. We're almost to the Q&A. I want you to know that the program comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, just let us know in the first 30 days. We'll give you your money back. No questions asked. But I'm pretty sure that within the first 30 days that a light bulb is going to go off in your head. And you're going to see how to take matters into your own hands and start licensing into libraries and making money with your music, just like all these folks have. Jamie here, what I love about Joyce's program is how straight to the point it is and how much power she puts right in your hands. From preparing and submitting your music to how to go straight to the libraries and get it done.
Yeah, and Jamie actually took it to another level entirely, because I did it with a full-time job, but she does it with a day job and kids. So respect.
Or John. John has learned some of the secrets of networking. Pretty shy to start. He figured out how to get to the right people in the music business one at a time by listening to Joyce and her networking lessons and taking the course and just jumping in. So right now I want to introduce you to one other member named Jim, who we heard from earlier, so you can see what he has to say about the program.
I had been at this game for a while, trying to make headway with publishers and so forth. And then I saw her course and I thought, man, this is like tailor-made for what I'm doing. The thing that I liked is that because of her background I think she was like an accountant or something like that. She was extremely organized and methodical. And the engineer side of me thinks the same way, like, this is it, She had this spreadsheet of how to track like what you're doing with your songs, who you're contacting, and then holding yourself accountable to, every track's got to have metadata, every track's got to have all the pertinent information so that you can attack as many publishers as you can with all that content. So I love that part. Super organized and super useful, like day-to-day work on how to get your songs out there. So that part I really liked. I also liked meeting some other songwriters in that group and hearing their successes or their challenges. The placements I've had so far have been through getting songs licensed into someone's library, and then those songs just being found and used. So that's the part that excites me, is like there's no limits, really.
All right, everybody. I told you that we have a special deal for everybody here on the webinar, and this is it. All the details on the program, you can click the link in the chat. I think if Chelsea puts that up. Imagine what it'll feel like when you get your first licensing placement after signing up for Get Your Music Licensed and all the bonuses that we have for you today. The 100 leads that we talked to you about that you get in this course, they're so valuable. You know why? Because you can submit your music to them over and over and over again at no cost. These leads are 100% free to submit to, and you're going to get complete transparency with what's going on. And on top of that, you're going to learn the skills that will let you find your own leads and how to tag your tracks and how to stand out. Like Joyce said, we're going to teach you how to fish and put your future success right into your own hands. It's all right there for you. Click the link you see in the chat and sign up. Now, if you want this free licensing workbook and checklist, everybody who's still here, thank you for being here, go to the same link. Scroll to the bottom of the page and boom, click the ebook. And there it is. It's yours for free for being here today with 7 licensing leads in it that you can start submitting to right away. This is what we promised you for watching the webinar. It's at the bottom of the course page. Check it out. Just click the link you see in the chat, go to the bottom of the page, click on the ebook, and there it is. Remember, this is available to you right now at this price, so sign up. 30-day guarantee, you have nothing to lose. There's no risk. If you have any interest at all in making money by licensing your song catalog and the music you love to write and learning how to do it right, then sign up. I guarantee that you will be glad that you did. All right, questions. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. We're going to answer as many questions as we can.
Yeah.
So, Chelsea, fire away.
Yeah, we got a ton. So let's see how rapid fire we can do these. So a bunch of people were asking about kind of what you use, what DAW and production tools do you use? What do you use for mastering? Do you use MIDI versus real instruments? What's your thought on that?
I use Logic Pro 10. I have Yamaha speakers, monitors. I have a Complete Control S49, and yeah, I have a really super simple setup. And sorry, the second part of the question was?
It was live versus MIDI.
So, yeah, so I used to use a lot of MIDI, and I actually saw in the chat someone ask about how the market was evolving. I'm trying to evolve more and more towards real instruments because with AI coming in and doing a great job with virtual instruments, I'm doing my best to practice my jazz piano and guitar skills.
Cool. Shane asks, are multi-track stems required for submitting for sync libraries, or are 2-track masters okay?
2-track masters are okay, but it's true that, the more high-end libraries you work with, the more they'll want multi-track stems.
Cool. Daryl asks, is there a library or a few libraries that you know of that are better suited for video game compositions?
I think with video games compositions, it makes sense to go directly to the creator whenever you can. Otherwise, maybe Pond 5, but I'm not sure, honestly. So I would go directly to the creator whenever possible.
All right, cool. Laka asks, do licensees ever ask artists to change up the song at all, arrangement, key, tempo, etc., before they accept it?
So with music libraries, that's pretty rare. It can happen. That would usually happen. Excuse me, with exclusive libraries. They have a bit. Some of them have a higher end type of customers, and they'll ask you to make changes. But usually, the way the music library world works is that your stuff is available in the store. Basically, the library is an online store, and they either like what you're offering or they pass. So, they don't really make requests for edits or anything.
Hey, Joyce, to just jump in really quick here about that. Here in LA, there's a few people like supervisors will do that once in a while, just like you're saying. But you have to be one of these crazy people, producers, who can do stuff so fast, so quick. There are some of them out there, but they're a tiny minority, definitely. So usually it's deadline, right? And it's like, we need the music, the finished product. So very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a bunch of questions about metadata, actually, and I know you talked a little bit about this in your presentation, but could you kind of clarify the difference between the metadata that's attached to the track itself and the metadata you put into libraries, and what you should put in each of those and how they're different?
Sure. So metadata in audio files is super, super important if you reach out directly to music supervisors, for example. Chris will have told you that for those of you who work with him already, because the idea is that the metadata that's in the audio file, it's when the person opens that file on their computer, they need to have that information available. Now, if you work only with music libraries, you can actually afford to forget a little bit about the metadata in the audio file, and send the streaming link. Most libraries will ask for a streaming link to audition your tracks, and then they'll accept it, and then you'll send the tracks, and then you'll input the metadata directly in their tool. So then their tool, you put in the same information, so your CAE number, the ISRC code if you have it, ISWC code if you have it, keywords, genres, tempo, all of that. You put all that information, but in the library. So if you've done it already in the audio file, great, but you're going to have to input it manually in the library anyway. So if you work only with libraries, you can actually save a little bit of time and just do it in the library. What I do recommend is that when you do it once, fill out the music catalog tracker of sorts, even if it's not the one from the course, but fill in a tracker so that next time you send it to another library and you have to go through the same process, that you can just copy paste and save a bunch of time.
Awesome. This one just came in. What would you say about using a pseudonym? I know you talk about this a lot in the course, Joyce, so I thought it'd be a good one to bring up.
I have 5 pseudonyms, and I'm not telling you what they are. So you remember I told you in the webinar, like, it's unless you're applying for a job as a music composer on a TV show, it's usually not great to be good at many things. A lot of people frown upon that. Whether it's fair or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just the way it is. So if you work in different genres, it can be really useful to use different pseudonyms. And you can actually also create pseudonyms with your performance rights organization at no extra cost. So I actually only learned recently that BMI has a limit on 3 pseudonyms, different artist names. I'm with PRS and I have more than that, but it's a good way to kind of, if you think of each genre as a different brand, it helps me think of things differently and be clear in the way I communicate to different customers. But you can also just have only one CAE number and just use a different artist name in the music library and keep the same songwriter name. It doesn't really matter, whatever works for you.
Cool. Daniel asks about the mixing and unmastering levels for music libraries or licensing in general, and if it's different from like radio-ready music.
That reminds me, in the first question, I forgot to say for mastering, I use Ozone. So I actually don't, and maybe Chris will have a different opinion on that, but I actually don't care that much about loudness level and stuff. The only thing I do when I master my tracks is I compare them. I compare them to tracks that have already been accepted, and what I used to do before was compare them to tracks that are on the music library, on a few music libraries. And if they, if my track doesn't stick out like a sore thumb when I'm playing, when it's in the middle of a playlist, then I figure I'm fine, and I've never had any complaints.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the wise approach. Generally, I mean, you treat them the same. I've heard that, various people have said, yeah, a little bit, iTunes like this, and when you're encoding or something, different levels. But I mean,
Yeah.
I use a top mastering engineer. He's done more Grammy Award winning albums than I can count. And it's like, you just get it as loud as you can feasibly. Like, don't go for the loudness wars. Don't squish it. Don't kill the dynamics. In the TV show or the movie, they're going to end up like putting it to the volume that they want. If you send in some stems, they're going to do their own mastering. And then generally it also goes through their own compression. So just same deal.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. This one's from Pat. Can you explain what exactly are cues?
Okay. Sorry. So, cues, the way I used it in the webinar is like having like 10-second snippets, 15-second versions of your tracks, basically having small versions of your tracks that are usually very popular with customers because they can just kind of pick and choose. It gives them a lot of options.
That's cool, actually.
But then,
do you do that, Joyce? Like, do you recommend that people do that specifically? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I think it gives more options to the customer. I just always try to put myself in the customer's shoes and figure, okay, if I'm second at the top of the search results, how can I beat number one? And by giving them options.
Got it. And in a library, will that do that? And how do you?
Yeah. So what I mean is, like, when the customer may play the first two tracks of the search results and they like both, but then they see that I'm offering like 10 alternative versions, and the other one has just an instrumental version or no instrumental version.
Got it.
Or so that's. Yeah.
And how do you name
it? Doesn't
them?
always work, but
Right.
how do I name them?
Yeah,
so I just add the 30-second.
30
I try to be
cool, awesome,
or no bass or something like that.
Very cool tip.
Cool. So this is kind of going off that naming thing you just touched on, Joyce. But do you suggest when you're adding songs to libraries that you have keywords in the title of the song itself, or does that not so much matter?
I don't think it always helps. Like the thing is, it depends on the library. Like I don't have information on every library's algorithm. I just try to think of it just like I would for Google SEO, search engine optimization. So if you can have it, like the Audio Jungle example I gave was just like, you have like 3 keywords right in the title, and he's a top seller, but I've had tracks that perform well that I have one called A Load of Clap that it's just
hopefully
there's no keyword in there, but it's funny and it gets their attention.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one. Hey Dave, can I ask a question? Am I allowed?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I don't want to get in everyone's way here, but just really quick, Joyce, like I'm really curious, like, I heard about your job, which sounded utterly boring.
Yeah.
No offense. And then how did that feel when you first got your, because you went into a live, like when you first started doing it, without going into a big long story, when you first got your first sync, like in a library, what did that feel like for you? Like, was it just kind of like a revelation, or was it like
So how it felt like was, like Chandler's Dance in Friends?
What's that? Oh,
Did you watch Friends? Did you used to watch Friends? So Chandler has this dance. That was me when I got my first placement. But the revelation I got for sync licensing actually was when I was living in London. I had my full-time job. I was traveling for work, and I wasn't really making a lot of friends in London. And I thought, okay, I'll try sound engineering. And I started learning sound engineering during the weekends. And my tutor was like a couple of years older than me, and he was making $6,000 a month from sync licensing.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, so I can do that. Because I was never interested in touring or anything, so I always made music, but didn't really know how to make a career out of it, and that was a big revelation for me.
Amazing. That's I always love asking people, like when I talk to people, what was your first sync like? Because the first sync's the hardest one. Once you get it, it gets easier and easier because you figure it out, especially with people in my course, people in your course, you show them how to do it over and over. But I love hearing the first story. It's like first, or a band. What's like when you first heard your song on the radio? Feels the same way, except you make a lot more money in licensing. So yeah, cool. Thanks, Dave. I'm done.
Good question.
All right, we got a time for a few more.
Yeah.
Okay, so we actually had a few questions talking about the exclusive library and how that affects other aspects of your career. So for example, Dan asks, if I sign a song to an exclusive library, can I still perform it live? Can that song still be on Spotify? Can I release that song on a CD? How does that affect the kind of more distribution side of your career?
No, so most of the time licensing and distribution doesn't interfere unless you're signing away your copyrights. So when you sign with a music library, you need to be careful that you're not signing over your copyrights, that you're not giving. There are libraries out there that will buy out your tracks. And what that means is they'll give you like $500, and in exchange, they get your music, and then they do whatever they want with it. And so in those cases, and I don't talk about those types of libraries much, and actually at all, I think in the course, it's something we can, if you want me to investigate, I can, but I'm not really, that's not my game. My game is about, setting it in the music library and in a way that you get recurring revenue. So most of the time there's no conflict between your career as a touring artist and licensing. On the contrary, a good placement can help you with your gigs, and your gigs can land you big placements as well if you start, building a fan base.
Cool. So this one just came in from Keith. Can you give a brief overview of what steps you use in vetting libraries that you decide to submit to?
Okay. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left. So the big question I ask myself before I sign a deal is, if that deal doesn't work out for me, if they make no sale, am I okay? And am I comfortable with this deal not making me any income? And the reason that's a super important question to ask is that, that kind of informs am I going to go exclusive or non-exclusive? If I'm going to go exclusive, is it worth the risk, or is the contract really, really long? So that's the biggest question I ask myself. Would I be okay making $0 from this deal? And it's a little bit different for me because I do have hundreds of tracks. So it's different from Chuck, for example, who only has 37. So that really depends on your situation. So I think that's a good question to ask yourself. And also, I like to, if the information is available, I like to get in touch with composers that are on their website to ask if they enjoy working with the library. I also like to look at the volume, the traffic volume on the libraries to evaluate how much traffic they get to the website. So evaluate kind of the potential, if it's worth my time and energy. It's not a foolproof metric, but it's information. And also the pricing, if they value their catalog, or if I'm kind of devaluing my music by being on there.
So Dave, just quick, so if they want to sign up for the course right now, they go to newartistmodel.com/Joyce. Is that right?
Yep, that's
okay,
it.
Awesome.
At the top of the chat, the link is at the top of the chat. The free ebook is also there at the bottom of that page. This is not going to be up for very long, so don't hesitate. This is your shot. 30-day money-back guarantee. You guys have nothing to lose by checking this out.
Well, hey, I'll just take this second to say really fast. Just so everyone who showed up from Sing Songwriter, thanks for coming out. It's awesome. As you know, I like to surround myself by good people, right? So I've always done that in the industry. When I was a music producer, when I got into sync, I just try to deal with good people, stay away from the not so good people. And then when I bring you guys, people like this, and thanks for having me on the webinar, Dave and Joyce and Chelsea, thanks for doing this. It's awesome. I don't want to bring you somebody who just sells you something, right? That's not what it's about. It's about supporting indie songwriters. So I'm super picky to make sure I vet these people to make sure it's about results. It's about value. So that's obviously, this is amazing. So I feel like I made a great decision, and I hope you guys do too. And yeah, again, thanks for doing this, Dave and Chelsea and Joyce. It's awesome.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So many great questions. I love it.
Yeah, so a few more.
Yeah. If
Go
you're
for
up for it, Joyce and Chris.
I'm up for it.
All right.
It's my
Serena
favorite
asks,
part.
is there a place other than IMDb where you can find out about tracks each particular library has licensed?
I didn't get that question. Sorry. Aside from
is
IMDb, so
Yeah, so other
you've got
sites apart from IMDb that
where you can
use as a
find like what
resource.
tracks were on TV shows. You've got TuneFind, but honestly, IMDb is the best resource. Like, I love it. I wouldn't go anywhere else. Do you have a recommendation, Chris, aside from IMDb?
You know, TuneFind and IMDb are the top
Yeah.
ones, and then we show people how to target through different things like similar artists and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But
That's right.
yeah, those are excellent.
Cool. We had Rick ask about setting up your own library on your website, for example, and how that compares to, for example, going to a production library, and what would be what better for which kind of artist, basically.
Okay. If you're a music producer who's able to come up with lots of tracks, my recommendation when you're first starting out is that you put all your tracks in a music library like Audio Jungle, and then you drive as much traffic as you can to that website, to that page, to your artist page on Audio Jungle or SongTrader. It's true there are some downsides, like the customer you send there may end up, buying from the competition. If they do buy through Audio Jungle, you'll have to give Audio Jungle a share, but you don't have to worry about contracts. You have a price structure depending on usage. You don't have to worry about a lot of admin stuff that it's a full-time job. Self-publishing is a full-time job. So to start out, I would recommend that, just because you're kind of testing your product, and if it works that way, you find that when you if you're able to drive traffic to that page and people are paying, then you're onto something, and it might be worth investing the time and money and energy into building your own platform and having a lawyer review your license agreements and all that. If you're an indie artist whose main focus is on gigs and touring, then you have a few options really, but your website should be dedicated to your core business, which is gigs in that case. And then you could either have again, I would recommend having a link that brings people over to another platform where they can license your track directly, so you don't get distracted by the contract stuff. But if you wanted to, and if you already have a lot of traffic coming to your website, you could build a page. There's Airbit that's pretty cool, where you can sell your beats. They're for beat makers, but you can sell any kind of track you want to through them, and you can integrate that to your website. Have one page for licensing on your band's website if you wanted to, but it's more work.
Awesome. This one comes from Rob. What kind of percentages do libraries take as their cut if you get your song license through them, and sort of what kind of range is there?
So a pretty standard deal is 50-50 of the sync fee. Sorry, and then they act as your publisher for that placement. So when the track goes on TV, for example, you'll get the writer's share of performance royalties, and they'll get the publisher's share of performance royalties. That's pretty standard. The reason I mentioned SongTrader and Audio Jungle, if you're gonna kind of do that hybrid approach, is because they take a lower cut. So yeah, but 50-50 is pretty standard.
Okay, so keeping on that sort of money train of thought. How long does it take to get paid once you make a deal or a sale?
Yeah. So the library, usually libraries will pay you like every month or every 3 months. But then if for the royalties to trickle in, if the song is used on TV, for the performance royalties to trickle in from ASCAP or BMI or your PRO, that can take, a month or a year. So that takes a while. But music libraries, usually they'll have a minimum payout. So, it might be that you need to earn $50 before they pay you out, but otherwise they do it on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, depending on the library.
It's pretty sweet though, having that back end royalty coming in, right?
Yep.
Like when you're doing it straight to a supervisor, it's like, boom, sync fee. Awesome. Thanks. Wicked. And then you're off touring or you're at home with your family, whoever you are, what you do. And it's like, bingo, another check. Oh, yeah. Another check. Oh, another check, and if you got a few like licenses going on, it's like, yeah, it's great.
And I find it's really cool to get like a check from Australia. Like you see like the
right.
Stuff
yeah. Really cool. Totally. From different. Yeah. I got a license down there too. Or that's awesome. Yeah. Love hearing those stories. Yeah.
Okay. This one comes from Terry. So if you're licensing your own music, and you need to copyright it before you send it out. She says that process can take quite a while. Is there a way to kind of expedite that so you can start licensing your music quicker?
So as soon as you've registered your song for copyright, you've submitted, you can license it. So you don't have to wait like the 6-7 month or 4. It depends on, just make sure. So if you're registering your copyright online, you'll get a confirmation right away. So that confirmation is proof of copyright already. And just make sure if you're sending your stuff via postal mail that you use a service that gives you proof of sending. And you can find that information, because I asked myself the same thing, and that information is on the Copyright Office. It's coming directly from the U.S. Copyright Office's website, FAQ. So I'm hoping it's reliable, because they should know.
Better be, yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up. Folks, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chelsea. Thanks, everybody, for being here. So come on down, check it out. Also at the bottom of that page is the free ebook that we promised you. And thank you all for coming. Great questions. I hope you all have a lot of luck and good fortune in licensing your music. Stay tuned for other webinars that we'll be doing in the future. And rock on, everybody. Thank you for coming.